2:37 a.m. in shark-infested waters, a Coast Guard helicopter crew finds their own wreckage. A military K-9, still strapped to the fuselage, attacks every rescuer who gets close, until a rookie swimmer whispers a code from a unit that doesn't exist. That swimmer was Petty Officer Maya Cruz on her first live rescue. The German Shepherd should have been drowning, not defending, and the code she used wasn't in any Coast Guard manual. It was a spectral command, linking a sinking helicopter, a rogue K-9, and a secret the military thought it had buried at sea. The distress call had crackled across the channel 40 minutes earlier. Coast Guard Helicopter 659er, a Jayhawk deployed out of Air Station Clearwater, was caught in a microburst during a medical evacuation. It lost altitude fast, clipping a rogue wave before vanishing from radar. The rescue cutter Steadfast was the nearest vessel. By the time it reached the last known coordinates, all they found was a debris field, life jackets, a fractured rotor blade, and a partially submerged fuselage bobbing in 15-foot swells under a moonless sky. The first rescue swimmer overboard, Petty Officer Marcus Vance, reported movement near the wreck. He assumed it was a surviving crew member. He was wrong. As he swam closer, a shape erupted from the dark water beside the helicopter's open cabin door. Not a human, a German Shepherd, its tactical harness still clipped to an internal mooring line. It paddled furiously, not toward Vance, but placing itself directly between him and the wreck. Vance shouted standard commands. "Come, here, easy." The dog ignored him. It let out a guttural, water-choked bark. When Vance tried to move around it, the K-9 lunged, snapping its jaws inches from his face. It wasn't trying to escape. It was holding a perimeter. Back on the Steadfast Asterisk, the mission commander watched through night vision scopes. They could see two figures inside the flooded cabin, unmoving. The crew was running out of time, and a 70-pound military dog, trained for God knows what, was attacking anyone who tried to save them. They deployed a second swimmer with a catch pole. The dog dove beneath the surface, avoided the loop, and resurfaced behind him, biting at his flippers. They considered sedation darts, but the risk of drowning the animal was too high. Every minute, the helicopter sank another 6 inches. This was the moment Maya Cruz stepped onto the deck. She'd been silent until then, a shadow in her orange dry suit. She was 26, a recent graduate of the grueling Aviation Survival Technician School in Elizabeth City. Tonight was her first live case deployment. Her file was clean, ordinary. Top of her class in water survival, bottom third in protocol. A maverick streak noted by her instructors. She didn't ask for permission. She pointed at the K-9 in the water. "He's not panicking," she said. "He's following orders." The mission chief stared at her. "What orders? His handlers are probably dead in that cabin." Maya ignored him. She checked the rigging on her harness and dove into the black water. She swam with a calm, efficient stroke. The dog spotted her immediately. It turned, teeth bared, the same aggressive posture that had driven back 2 experienced swimmers. Maya didn't slow down. She stopped about 10 feet away, treading water. She made no sudden moves. Then she did something that made the crew on the ship freeze. She didn't shout. She spoke 3 words low and clear directly at the dog. The language wasn't English, it was German. "Bleib, wasch, vertrauen." Stay, guard, trust. The effect was instantaneous. The German Shepherd's head tilted. Its aggressive paddling ceased. It let out a short, sharp whine. Maya repeated the phrase, this time as a firm command. The dog's entire posture changed. The defensive rigidity melted. It gave one last look toward the submerged cabin, then turned and began swimming directly toward Maya. It didn't attack. It reached her and circled once before positioning itself at her side, head above water, watching her as if awaiting the next order. The radio on the Steadfast erupted in confused transmissions. Maya gave a hand signal, asterisk clear asterisk, and the other swimmers moved in to extract the downed aircrew. They pulled two unconscious men from the cabin, the pilot and the medic, both alive but hypothermic and suffering from traumatic submersion. The dog watched them being lifted into the rescue basket but stayed glued to Maya's side in the water until she herself was recovered. On the deck of the cutter, chaos turned to quiet shock. The rescued crew was rushed below for medical attention. The German Shepherd stood dripping on the non-slip surface, still harnessed, still alert. It didn't approach anyone except Maya. When she knelt to check its harness, it sat obediently. The mission commander, Chief Warrant Officer Harlan, approached her. "Cruz, what in the holy hell was that? What did you say?" Maya unclipped the dog's waterlogged harness. "A recall phrase, Chief." "Recall phrase to what? That's a DOD animal. Its training is classified above our pay grade." Maya avoided his eyes, focusing on the dog. "It's a multi-purpose K9, probably cross-trained for patrol and detection. Its primary command language is German. I just used its formal stand-down command." Harlan wasn't buying it. "I've worked with Navy K9 handlers. That wasn't a standard stand-down. That animal was in full defensive mode. You spoke and it switched off like a robot. And how did you know it was German?" Before she could answer, a petty officer ran up. "Chief, we found this in the cabin." He handed over a sealed, waterproof pouch. Inside was a military ID folder, not for the crew, for the dog. Its name was Falk Asterisk, serial number K9784 Delta, and its assignment unit was listed simply, JSOAC Asterisk. Harlan went pale. JSOA, Joint Special Operations Activity. The blanket classification for units so covert they don't officially exist. This wasn't just a military dog on a transport. This was a Tier 1 asset, and it had been on a Coast Guard helicopter that had no business carrying it. He looked from the ID to the dog, then to Maya Cruz. Her face was a mask, but she recognized the unit designation. He saw the flicker of knowledge in her eyes before she shut it down. "Cruz, my office now." The dog, Falk, followed her without a command. In the cramped command office, Harlan dropped the waterproof pouch on his desk. "Start talking, and don't give me the German language handbook crap." Maya stood at parade rest, the dog sitting at her heel. The helicopter 659er, what was its mission log? Hospital ship medevac, routine. With a special operations K9 on board, that's not routine. Maya's voice was flat. The dog's harness was hooked to a hardpoint, not a travel crate, a battle-ready mooring. They were expecting trouble. Expecting trouble on a medical run, that's insane. "Unless the patient wasn't just a patient," Maya said, her eyes distant. "Unless they were transporting something or someone that needed that level of protection, and something went wrong before the weather even hit." Harlan sat back heavily. The pieces were too strange, too specific. The inexplicable dog, the rookie who knew its secret language, the phantom unit. "Who are you, Cruz, really?" "I'm a Coast Guard rescue swimmer, Chief." "Bull, you're something else, and that dog knows it." He pointed at Falk, who watched him with unwavering focus. "He obeys you like you're his handler." Maya was silent for a long moment. The only sound was the ship's engines and the distant whine of the medical helicopter approaching to take the wounded crew. Finally, she spoke, so quietly Harlan almost missed it. "His handler is dead, Chief. I saw the name on the cabin manifest. Sergeant First Class Arlo Jensen. He was in the cabin, he didn't make it. Falk knew. That's why he was guarding the wreck. He was following his last order, protect the package, and he was waiting for a relief he recognized." Harlan felt a chill. A relief he recognized. "You, how?" Maya didn't get to answer. The radio on the wall buzzed. It was the bridge. "Chief, we've got an incoming transmission. Encrypted channel, it's naval intelligence. They're demanding a full sitrep on the recovery of Asset Falk. They're ordering us to stand by for an intercept. A Navy destroyer is altering course to rendezvous. ETA 90 minutes. Harlan looked at Maya. Her face had lost all its color. The dog at her side let out a low growl, not at Harlan, but at the radio, as if it understood the words. The secret hadn't been buried at sea. It had just been rescued, and now the people who buried it were coming to collect. The next 89 minutes were a controlled panic. The Steadfast became a ship waiting for an executioner. Chief Harlan ordered a security lockdown. No external comms. No crew discussions about the dog or the wreck. But whispers traveled through the steel corridors faster than any order could stop them. Maya was confined to the medical bay, officially for a post-rescue debrief. Unofficially, she was under guard. Falk was with her, lying at the foot of the examination table, eyes tracking every movement of the corpsman who pretended to check Maya's vitals. The dog's loyalty was absolute and unnerving. Harlan entered, dismissing the corpsman. He didn't sit. The destroyer is the USS James Asterisk. It carries a special detachment from Naval Criminal Investigative Service. They're not coming for a debrief. They're coming for containment. Maya didn't look up from her hands. They'll want the dog, and they'll want to know how I controlled him. More than that, Harlan said, his voice low. I pulled your service jacket. It's thin, Cruz, too thin. 8 months of Coast Guard history. Before that, a black hole. No college records they could verify. No prior employment. Your references are P.O. boxes and dead phone numbers. Who built that for you? Someone who wanted me to have a fresh start. A fresh start doesn't require that level of wipe. That's witness protection level or deserter level. He leaned against the wall. The handler who died, Arlo Jensen. I had comms run a background ping. His record is sealed above top secret. The man is a ghost. And you knew his dog's activation code. So tell me who you are, or I hand you and the dog over to the NCIS spooks and let them sort it out. They won't be as polite. Maya met his eyes. The calm, professional mask was gone. In its place was a weary defiance. You think I'm a deserter. I think you're someone the machine spit out and tried to forget. And now the machine remembers, and it's coming back to clean up its mistake. She was silent for a long time, listening to the hum of the ship. Falk whined softly, sensing her distress. Finally, she spoke. I wasn't Army, or Navy, or any branch you have a patch for. My unit was JSOAC, the same as Falk. Harlan felt the air leave the room. Joint Special Operations Activity, Charlie. That's a myth. A boogeyman story operators tell. It was real. We were real. We were a pilot program. A crossbreeding of Tier 1 shooters and military working dog teams merged into single autonomous pairs. The dog wasn't just a tool. It was your partner in a way even other SEALs couldn't understand. We shared a handler number. We were deployed for one thing, sensitive site exploitation on denied territory. No support. No extraction until the job was done. Harlan tried to process it. A soldier and a dog operating as one single lethal intelligence-gathering unit. How many of you? 12 pairs, 24 souls. Her voice tightened. Our communications were through the dogs, encrypted micropulses in their training collars. A recall phrase like the one I used was a dead man's switch. It meant the handler was compromised and command authority was transferring to the next available pair. It was never supposed to be used outside the unit. Ever. So when you said that phrase, you weren't just calming him down, you were assuming command. Maya nodded. Falk recognized my authority because my biometric signature is still in the system. My voice pattern, my scent. The system thinks I'm still active. It thinks I'm his new handler. But you're not active, you're here. What happened to JSOAC? Maya's gaze drifted to a spot on the wall, seeing something far away. Operation Silent Dune, the Gulf, 2019. Our mission was to confirm a suspected bioweapons lab. We inserted clean. We were compromised within 6 hours. It wasn't bad intel. It was a trap. Our own comms were being fed to the enemy. She took a shaky breath. My partner was a Malinois named Rex. We were the lead pair. We got hit first. Rex. He took the rounds meant for me. Bought me 11 seconds to get to cover. I watched him die. Then I watched the rest of my team get cut down over the next 8 hours. I was the only human who made it out. 2 other dogs survived, but they were captured. Harlan stared, horror dawning. You were listed as KIA. Worse, we were listed as operational loss, no recovery. Our unit was scrubbed from the books. The program was terminated. The official story was a training accident in a non-combat zone. Everyone who knew the truth was either dead or ordered to forget. So you disappeared. An admiral I'd never met before found me in a debrief room. He gave me a choice. I could be an inconvenient witness to a multi-million-dollar failure and spend the rest of my life in protective custody looking over my shoulder, or I could cease to exist. Let them bury the legend of JSOAC and with it my old name. He offered me a new one, a clean slate, far from anything that smelled of sand or gunpowder. I chose the ocean. The pieces slammed together for Harlan. The freakish skill in the water, the instinct under pressure, the haunted look in her eyes that had nothing to do with rookie nerves. You were a weapon, and they turned you into a lifesaver. Balance, Maya whispered, echoing her own earlier thought. A loud knock shattered the moment. A petty officer stuck his head in, face tense. Chief, the James Asterisk is here. They're launching a rigid-hull inflatable boat. ETA 5 minutes, and sir, they're not alone. There's a civilian with them, in a suit. Harlan and Maya exchanged a look. Naval intelligence with a civilian in tow meant only one thing: oversight from outside the chain of command. Someone with political clout. Get to the bridge, Harlan ordered Maya. Stay out of sight. The dog stays with you. But it was too late. The inflatable boat didn't head for the main deck. It curved around the stern and pulled up directly beneath the medical bay's external hatch, a spot they shouldn't have known about. They had the ship's schematics. 4 armed Naval Security Force personnel climbed aboard first, securing the hallway. Then came an NCIS agent in a tactical vest, and finally, the civilian. He was in his 50s, wearing a rumpled sport coat over a polo shirt. He looked like a mid-level manager, but his eyes were the coldest thing Harlan had seen all night. Chief Warrant Officer Harlan, the civilian said, not asking. I'm Alan Vickers, Department of Defense Inspector General's office. Where is the asset? Harlan stood his ground. The recovered canine is secure. I need to see your clearance and your orders, sir. Vickers didn't blink. He handed over a tablet. The screen displayed a DoD directive with multiple flag officer signatures, authorizing him to take immediate custody of any and all materials, biological assets, and personnel associated with Recovery Operation Tango 659er. The language was broad enough to cover the ship itself. The dog, Vickers repeated, and the rescue swimmer who interacted with it, Petty Officer Cruz. She's being debriefed by medical. Debriefing is now our responsibility. Bring her and the asset. There was no arguing with the signatures on that screen. Harlan radioed the bridge. 2 minutes later, Maya entered, Falk at her heel. The moment she saw Vickers, she stopped dead. The dog let out a low, continuous growl, the fur on his back rising. Vickers looked from Maya to the dog and smiled thinly. It didn't reach his eyes. Petty Officer Cruz, we meet at last. He turned to the NCIS agent. Secure the animal. The agent stepped forward with a catch pole and a muzzle. Falk's growl deepened into a snarl. He positioned himself in front of Maya. Don't, Maya said, her voice sharp. He's not aggressive, he's protective. You muzzle him, you'll trigger a defensive response. Stand down, Petty Officer, Vickers said. This is no longer your concern. He is my concern. He's following the last order from his dead handler. Your men approach him like a hostile, you will get bitten. And then you will have to put down a Tier 1 military asset that just saved 2 Coast Guard lives. Is that on your incident report? The NCIS agent hesitated, looking at Vickers. Vickers studied Maya with new interest. You speak about him with unusual familiarity. I read his tag, JSOAC. I know what that means. Do you? Vickers's gaze was penetrating. That program was decommissioned years ago. Its protocols are archived. How would a Coast Guard rescue swimmer know an active command phrase for one of its animals? Maya had walked into the trap. She said nothing. Vickers nodded slowly. I think you need to come with us, both of you. He gestured to Maya and the dog. Harlan stepped forward. On what grounds? She's a member of my crew. On grounds of national security, Chief. She's material to an ongoing investigation into a breach of classified protocols. Vickers's tone was final. You can comply, or I can have the James Asterisk place your ship under temporary command authority. Your choice. It was a bluff, but a powerful one. Harlan was outranked, outgunned, and out of options. He gave Maya a barely perceptible nod. Go along, for now. Maya understood. She knelt beside Falk, speaking softly in German. Falj, ruhig, follow, calm. The dog immediately sat, the tension leaving his body. He allowed the NCIS agent to clip a lead to his harness, though he watched the man's every move. They were transferred to the inflatable boat, and then to the looming shadow of the USS Asterisk James Asterisk. The destroyer was a world of gray steel and harsh lights. They were taken not to the brig, but to a secure conference room deep in the ship's superstructure. The room was soundproofed, with a large two-way mirror. Vickers dismissed the guards. It was just him, Maya, and Falk who lay down at Maya's feet, eyes fixed on Vickers. You can drop the act, Captain, Vickers said softly. Maya didn't flinch. I'm a petty officer, 3rd class. Captain Maya Vance, former commanding officer of JSOAC, presumed killed in action, Operation Silent Dune. The Navy spent $2 million searching for your body, and here you are in a Coast Guard uniform. He slid a file folder across the table. It was her old military service record, her real one. A photo of her in army dress blues with the rank of captain stared back. She didn't touch it. That person is dead. Clearly not. The admiral who faked your death, Admiral Jameson, retired last year. He failed to purge one backup server. Your biometric data, including your vocal imprint for the K9 command network, was still active. When you spoke that phrase tonight, it triggered an automated alert deep in a Pentagon subserver. That's why I'm here. Not for the dog, for the ghost who commanded him. Maya felt the walls closing in. The clean slate had just shattered. What do you want? The truth, what really happened at Silent Dune. The official report is a masterpiece of fiction. I want the facts, and in return I can make your new life permanent. I can rebury Captain Vance for good. It was an offer and a threat. He wasn't just oversight, he was hunting for the people who buried the operation. My team was betrayed, Maya said, the words tasting like ash. Our route was compromised. Our extraction was canceled. We were left there. It wasn't incompetence. It was a deliberate sacrifice. Vickers leaned forward, his recorder now visible on the table. By whom? By the people who funded the bioweapons lab we were sent to find. They had contacts high up, high enough to get a black ops unit wiped off the map to protect their investment. I didn't know who then. I just knew we were sold out. And Arlo Jensen, Falk's handler, was he part of your old unit? Maya shook her head. No, JSOAC was disbanded, but the dog training protocols, the bonding techniques, they were recycled. Jensen was part of a new, even more classified successor program. He was transporting something tonight, something so important it needed a JSOA level K9 as a courier. What was on that helicopter, Vickers? What was Jensen carrying that was worth killing him and the crew over? Vickers's expression closed off. That is not your concern. It is if it got my people killed then and got more people killed tonight. Maya's control snapped. Falk rose to his feet, a warning rumble in his chest. Before Vickers could answer, the ship's intercom crackled. Mr. Vickers, report to the bridge immediately. Urgent traffic from DC. Vickers stood, his face unreadable. Stay here, do not attempt to leave. He left, locking the door behind him. Maya was alone, but not for long. A minute later, the lock clicked. The door opened slowly. It wasn't Vickers. It was a young Navy lieutenant, her face pale. She held a finger to her lips. She quickly crossed the room and slid a note to Maya. It read Jensen was carrying a data drive, a ledger. It names names from Silent Dune. They think you have it. They will disappear you. Get to the hangar bay, now. The lieutenant pointed to a service hatch in the corner of the room, used for ventilation access. It leads to a maintenance corridor. Go, take the dog. I'll buy you 3 minutes. Who are you? Maya whispered. Jensen was my brother, the lieutenant said, her eyes glistening. He told me if he ever went missing to find the ghost. He said you'd know what to do. Now go. Maya didn't hesitate. She pulled the hatch open. Falk slipped through first. She followed into the narrow, dark crawlspace, pulling the hatch shut behind her just as she heard raised voices outside the conference room door. She was in the belly of a Navy destroyer, hunted by her own government, with a special operations dog as her only ally. And somewhere on this ship, or at the bottom of the ocean, was a data drive that could expose why her first family was murdered. The mission wasn't over, it had just rebooted. The maintenance corridor was a tight, greasy labyrinth of pipes and wires. Maya moved by touch and memory, Falk a silent shadow at her heels. Every vibration in the deck plates was a potential footstep. Every distant echo of the ship's intercom was a search party getting closer. She had 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, before Vickers returned to the empty conference room. Then the hunt would begin in earnest. She needed to get to the hangar bay, but on a warship she didn't know, with a dog in tow, it was a suicide run. Falk nudged her hand with his nose, then looked pointedly down a branching corridor to the left. He took 2 steps, waited, and looked back. You know the way, Maya whispered. The dog didn't bark. He just stared, ears forward. Jensen must have taken him through these service ways before. The dog was navigating. They moved, a ghost and her hound, through the belly of the ship. Twice, they froze as crew members passed by a grate. Once, Falk's low growl warned her of someone waiting around a corner. She trusted him more than her own senses. After 5 minutes of tense navigation, they reached a heavy, unmarked door. Falk sat, signaling this was the spot. It was a storage locker. Inside, among spare engine parts, Maya found a duffel bag. It was military issue, but without markings. She unzipped it. Inside was a change of civilian clothes, a passport in a false name, and a satellite phone. And a note in the same handwriting as the one from the lieutenant. It read, Ghost. If you're reading this, Arlo is gone. The drive is the key. It's not just names, it's bank accounts, payments, a map of the betrayal. They'll sink the whole ship to keep it secret. The only copy is in the dog. Trust Falk. He knows the way home. Maya's blood ran cold. The only copy is in the dog. She looked at Falk. He watched her patiently. Jensen hadn't been carrying the drive. He'd implanted it in the dog, some kind of subcutaneous data capsule. That's why the helicopter was shot down. That's why Falk was the primary target. He wasn't just a courier. He was the message. The satellite phone buzzed once. A text from an unknown number. They've sealed the ship. No one leaves. Vickers has orders to terminate the asset. Your collateral. I can open Hangar 2 for 60 seconds. You'll need a pilot. Maya typed back with numb fingers. Who are you? The reply was instant. The reason you're still breathing. The clock started when you opened this door. 53 seconds. There was no time to think. She shoved the passport and phone into her pockets. Show me, she said to Falk. The dog led her at a run through 2 more turns, then to a ladder leading up. She climbed, Falk scrambling up behind her. At the top was another hatch. She cracked it open. The noise of the ship changed, the roar of engines, the rush of wind. They were in the hangar bay. The vast space housed 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters. One was being prepped by a ground crew. The other sat dark and silent at the far end. A figure in a flight suit waved frantically from its cockpit. The lieutenant. Maya and Falk sprinted across the open deck. Shouts erupted from the control tower. "Stop them!" A security team at the main hangar door turned, raising weapons. The lieutenant, call sign Jester, had the rotors already spinning up to a low idle. "Get in!" she yelled over the building whine. Maya boosted Falk into the cabin and climbed in after. "They'll shoot us down." "Not if we're already gone." Jester released the parking brake. The Seahawk lurched forward, moving under its own power toward the open deck edge. The destroyer was still underway, doing 20 knots. The night air whipped through the open cabin door. "Secure the dog and hang on." Jester pulled collective, and the helicopter lifted awkwardly, skids scraping the deck as small arms fire pinged off the hull. Then they were clear, banking hard away from the ship, disappearing into the low cloud cover. For 2 minutes, there was only the thunder of the rotors and the beating of Maya's heart. Then Jester spoke over the intercom. "We have about 10 minutes before they scramble fighters. I'm taking us to a rendezvous point. Coastal radar blind spot." "Who are you really?" Maya asked, moving to the co-pilot's seat. "Lieutenant Kara Jensen. Arlo was my twin. We both worked for Admiral Jameson. He ran the JSOAC cleanup. I was his aide. When Arlo found the ledger, he knew it was a death sentence. He came to me. We planned to get it to you. We knew you were alive. Jameson told us right before he retired. He said if the truth ever surfaced, you were the only one with the moral authority and the skills to expose it." Maya felt a wave of dizziness. "Jameson faked my death. Why tell you I was alive?" "Because he knew the cancer in the system wasn't gone. It had just gone deeper. He kept you in reserve, a ghost in the machine, in case the machine ever needed to be rebooted. The ledger doesn't just name contractors and politicians. It names the officer who gave the stand-down order at Silent Dune." The name hung in the air, unspoken. Maya already knew. Vickers. Not just Vickers, he was the bagman. The order came from higher, a 4-star general on the Joint Chiefs. The ledger has the wire transfers. Millions paid to offshore accounts to look the other way while a private bioweapons lab operated. Your unit was about to blow the lid off, so they blew you up instead. The scale of it was monstrous. Her entire team murdered for profit by the very people who sent them. Where is the data? In Falk. Microchip implant left shoulder. Scans as a standard ID chip. It's encrypted. The key is a sequence of commands given to the dog. Arlo taught them to Falk. The dog is the lock and the key. Maya looked back at Falk, lying calmly in the cabin. He had carried the truth through a crash, through the ocean, and past a dozen men with guns. "What's the rendezvous?" "A private airfield. There's a plane waiting to take you and the dog to The Hague, to the International Criminal Court. Once the data is in their hands, it's beyond the reach of the U.S. military. It's the only way." It made sense. It was the only play that had a chance, but it felt too clean, too prepared. "How did you know I'd be on the Steadfast? How did you know I'd use the code?" Jester was silent for a beat too long. "We didn't. We had eyes on the dog's implant. We were tracking him. When the helicopter went down, we thought it was over. Then we got the alert that his command network had been accessed by a verified user. Your voice print, we knew you were there. We just didn't know if you'd help." The helicopter began its descent, dropping below the clouds. They were over a dark, wooded coastline. A single runway lined with dim lights appeared below. A small jet waited at the far end. Jester set the Seahawk down on a grassy patch beside the runway. "Go. The pilot's name is Costa. He's ex-agency. He'll get you out." Maya unstrapped and moved to the cabin. Falk jumped out after her. She turned back to Jester. "What about you?" "I have to return the helicopter. Buy you time. Create a false trail. Go." Maya ran for the jet, Falk at her side. The air stair was down. A man in a leather jacket waved her aboard. As she hit the first step, a set of high-beam headlights snapped on from the tree line, blinding her. A convoy of black SUVs roared onto the runway, blocking the jet's path. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons raised. Not military, private contractors. And stepping out of the lead vehicle was Alan Vickers. He held a bullhorn. "Captain Vance, the dog comes with me. You can walk away. This is your last chance to stay dead." Maya stood frozen halfway up the stairs. The pilot, Costa, appeared in the doorway behind her. "We can't take off with them on the runway. We're boxed in." Falk stood in front of Maya, a deep, resonant growl building in his chest. He knew the enemy when he saw them. Vickers lowered the bullhorn and drew a pistol. He didn't aim at Maya, he aimed at Falk. "The asset is government property. You are an unauthorized user. This ends now." Maya did the only thing she could. She gave Falk a command, not in German, but in the coded sequence Arlo had taught him, a string of numbers and words that meant nothing to anyone else. Eins, Sieben, Adler, Falskirm. Falk immediately sat, then lay down, rolling onto his side, a submissive posture, but his eyes were locked on Vickers. Vickers smiled, lowering his gun slightly. "Good, now step away from the animal." Maya didn't move. The command I just gave, it wasn't a stand down, it was a dead man's switch. The data chip in his shoulder is now broadcasting its location and a 1-hour countdown to a public data dump on 6 major news servers. If Falk doesn't receive the cancel command from me in the next 60 minutes, the whole world sees the ledger. Kill him and the signal goes out instantly. Kill me and the countdown continues. You can't stop it. You can only negotiate. Vickers' smile vanished. He raised his pistol again, this time aiming at Maya's head. The contractors followed suit, a dozen red laser dots dancing on her chest. "You're bluffing." "Test me," Maya said, her voice eerily calm. "You have the resources, scan him. You'll find the broadcast pulse. It's on a frequency your jammers aren't blocking because it's using the dog's own nervous system as an antenna. Arlo Jensen was a genius. You're not getting that data. You're only getting a choice. Let us go and I recall the broadcast. Or we all burn together and your general goes down in history as a war criminal." A long, terrible silence stretched across the tarmac. The only sound was the idling jet engine and the distant cry of a night bird. Vickers' finger tightened on the trigger. Then slowly he lowered the gun. He barked an order to his men, "Stand down." The laser dots winked out. The contractors lowered their weapons, confusion on their faces. "Clear the runway," Vickers said, his voice thick with fury. "Let them go." Maya didn't wait. She and Falk boarded the jet. Costa pulled up the air stair and sealed the door. "Strap in. This is going to be a violent takeoff." As the jet engine spooled up and began to roll, Maya looked out the window. Vickers stood alone in the headlights, watching them, a statue of pure rage. They accelerated past the SUVs, lifted off, and climbed into the night sky. For the first time in hours, Maya allowed herself to breathe. She leaned her head back, exhaustion crashing over her. Falk rested his chin on her knee, his job done for now. Costa's voice came from the cockpit. "We're clear of U.S. airspace. Next stop, a refuel in Iceland, then on to the Netherlands. You did it, Captain." Maya looked at the dog, at the hidden data that had cost so many lives. She had the truth. She had the evidence. But as she looked at the satellite phone from the duffel bag, she saw a new message had come in during the chaos. It was from Kara Jensen. "They're not letting you go. The plane is compromised. Costa works for them. He's taking you to a black site, not The Hague. The only chance is to jump. Coordinates attached. I'll find you." Maya's blood turned to ice. She looked toward the cockpit. Costa was humming the picture of calm. She checked the coordinates. A remote area of the Canadian wilderness near a lake. She had the dog. She had a parachute. And she had 1 hour before the data dump went live and painted a target on her back for every intelligence agency in the world. The escape was over. Now came the real fight. There were 2 parachutes in the jet's emergency locker. One for her, one for the dog. Costa had no idea she knew. Maya moved silently to the back of the cabin, Falk following, as the plane droned on toward a fate she would not accept. She strapped the specialized canine harness onto Falk, his training making him still and cooperative. She clipped his chute to her own rig. They would go out together. The jump coordinates Kara sent were 20 miles north of their current position. They would have to survive the landing, then survive the wilderness until help arrived. If help arrived. She opened the rear service hatch. The roar of the jet engines and the biting cold of the high-altitude air flooded in. Costa's voice crackled over the intercom. "Everything okay back there?" "Just securing the asset," Maya shouted back, the wind stealing her words. She looked down at the moonlit tapestry of lakes and pine forests far below. Then she looked at Falk. "Ready?" The dog pressed against her leg, trusting her completely. There was no going back. She pushed them both out into the void. The freefall was a chaos of noise and cold. Falk stayed tucked against her, his body rigid but calm. At 8,000 feet, she pulled the ripcord. The chute deployed with a violent jerk, and suddenly they were floating, the world gone silent except for the wind in the lines. They landed hard in a shallow, icy lake, the parachute dragging them through the water. Maya cut the lines, fought her way to shore, and pulled Falk up beside her. They were soaked, freezing but alive. The plane continued into the night, unaware it had lost its cargo. For the next 36 hours they moved. Maya used the survival training she hadn't needed in years. She built a shelter, found fresh water, kept Falk close for warmth. The satellite phone was waterproof. She sent a single ping to Kara's number, a location and one word: alive. The response came 12 hours later: hold position. Friendlies inbound, trust no one else. Maya didn't sleep. She watched the tree line, Falk's ears acting as her early warning system. The countdown to the data dump was her constant companion. 59 minutes left when they jumped. Now, 23 hours gone. She had to transmit the cancel command soon, or the bluff would become reality and unleash chaos. Just before dawn on the second day, Falk stiffened, a growl building in his throat. Maya saw movement. A single figure dressed in civilian hiking gear emerged from the trees. It was Kara Jensen. She was alone, carrying a large backpack. She looked exhausted. Maya kept her distance, Falk between them. "Prove it's you." Kara didn't hesitate. The cancel command for the dead man's switch is Schneesturm, null, Heimat, snowstorm, 0, home. It was the phrase Arlo had embedded as a fail-safe. Only the three of them knew it. Maya felt a surge of relief so powerful it weakened her knees. She gave the command to Falk. The dog relaxed, the imminent broadcast threat neutralized. Kara approached, dropping the backpack. "It's over, Maya. Vickers is in custody. The general resigned an hour ago, citing health reasons. The news is going to break at 9 a.m. Eastern. The ledger has been delivered to the International Criminal Court through back channels. The cover-up is crumbling from the inside." Maya stared, not daring to believe. "How?" "When you jumped, Costa reported you were lost in an accident, but I had planted a tracking beacon on Falk's harness. I knew where you were. I also had the recordings from the destroyer and the tarmac. I took it all to the only person with the power to act, the Secretary of the Navy. He was Admiral Jameson's protege. He'd been waiting for proof. Your survival was the catalyst. Your testimony and the data from Falk was the proof." Maya sat heavily on a log, the adrenaline draining away, leaving her empty. And the general? Facing a military tribunal, then likely The Hague. The bioweapons lab was shut down 3 years ago, but the money trail leads right to his offshore accounts. Vickers sang like a bird to save his own skin. He gave up everyone. The sun broke over the trees, casting long shadows. It was over. The fight that had started in a desert and nearly ended in an ocean was finished on a quiet lakeshore in Canada. A Coast Guard helicopter found them 2 hours later. Not a Navy bird. An MH-60T from Air Station Traverse City. Chief Warrant Officer Harlan was waiting when they landed back on the cutter Steadfast. He looked at Maya, then at the German shepherd still glued to her side, and simply nodded. "You look like hell, Cruz." "Feel like it, Chief." He handed her a clean uniform. The Secretary of the Navy personally called the Commandant. "Your record is being reconfigured. Captain Maya Vance will receive a posthumous medal for valor. Petty Officer Maya Cruz will receive a commendation for life-saving actions and be offered a full reinstatement with her past service acknowledged but classified. You get to choose who you want to be." Maya took the uniform. "What about Falk?" "He's been discharged from military service. Paperwork says medical retirement. He needs a handler. Seems he's already chosen one." Maya looked down at Falk. He looked back, tail giving a single thump against the deck. The dog who had carried a nation's secret, who had guarded a wreck, who had followed her into the sky and the wilderness, was now hers. 3 months later, the story broke in the Washington Post. A detailed exposé on corruption in defense contracting, the tragic loss of a covert unit, and the systemic failures that allowed it. No names were named, but the reforms that followed were real. Maya stood on the deck of a different cutter, this time in the bright sun of the Caribbean. She wore her Coast Guard uniform, the petty officer insignia on her collar. Falk lay at her feet, wearing a bright orange Coast Guard canine life vest. He was officially the first non-explosive detection dog in the service, a pilot program for search and rescue K9s. Chief Harlan approached, sipping coffee, healing well. "He's a fast learner, better than some of the rookies." Harlan chuckled. "The brass is watching this little experiment. You pull off a few more miracles and they might make it a full-time program." "That's the idea," Maya said, looking at the horizon. She had chosen to remain Maya Cruz. Captain Vance had done her duty. Petty Officer Cruz had a different job to do. She had traded a life of taking for a life of saving. And she had a partner who understood that balance better than anyone. A call came over the radio, a pleasure craft in distress, taking on water 10 miles out. Maya and Falk moved as one, heading for the waiting helicopter. As the rotors began to spin, Falk looked up at her, ears forward ready. The last secret wasn't in a data chip. It was in the bond between a soldier and a dog. A bond that had survived betrayal, ocean depths, and freefall. A bond that now, finally, had found its purpose. The helicopter lifted off, turning toward the open sea. Below them, the cutter grew small. Ahead, a life waited to be saved. And in the cabin, a woman who was once a ghost and a dog who was once a weapon flew together into the light. That flight into the light was more than just another rescue. It was proof that sometimes the most extraordinary heroes don't wear the medals you expect. They wear orange dry suits or fur, and their greatest weapon isn't a gun, it's loyalty. The story of Maya and Falk is a tapestry woven from threads of real-world truth. The Coast Guard's canine program, though small, deploys teams globally from helicopters and boats. Military working dogs routinely train for water insertion and have even parachuted with their handlers into disaster zones. The bond is that profound. And yes, they are trained to respond to commands in languages like German or Dutch, creating a secure channel between handler and dog that few can interrupt. But beyond the tactics and training lies a deeper truth. We create these incredible bonds with animals, trusting them with our lives in the darkest moments, and then we ask them to hold secrets too heavy for humans to carry alone. Falk was a fictional dog, but his real-world counterparts have served as couriers, sentries, and saviors in every conflict of the modern age, often without any record of their service. The quiet nurse in the original story, the rookie Coast Guard swimmer in this one, they represent the countless professionals whose pasts are written in invisible ink. They walk among us, their greatest stories sealed by classification or choice, finding redemption not in glory, but in the next life they pull from the waves. So the next time you see a rescue swimmer plunging into a storm, or a military dog working calmly in an airport, remember, you are likely seeing only the surface. Beneath it lies a history of sacrifice, of secrets, and of a bond so fierce it can guard a wreck in open water or whisper a code that makes the world safe again. These stories survive because we choose to listen, because we choose to remember that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the calm voice in a storm, the steady hand on a harness, or the silent understanding between a soldier and her dog that the mission, to protect, to save, never really ends. If this story of loyalty and silent service moved you, then do one thing for the unsung heroes. Hit subscribe, not for me but for them, so that more of these hidden tales can find the light. Thank you for watching.